In a small, forgotten village, a miller's daughter faced an impossible task: spin straw into gold or face a terrible fate. Enter Rumpelstiltskin, a mysterious figure who offered to help, but at a cost. The deal was struck and the gold was spun, but when the time came to repay the debt, the daughter discovered something extraordinary. The name, Rumpelstiltskin, held the power to break his hold over her. With just a word, she shattered the curse and reclaimed her freedom. This tale is more than just a story, it's a testament to the profound power of names in mythology. Across cultures and centuries, names have been far more than mere labels. They are vessels of power, tools of destiny, and keys to unlocking magic itself. What if the words we speak could alter reality? What if the names we call upon could shape the very course of our lives? In this video, we'll explore how names have shaped the myths that define us, from ancient tales of gods and heroes to the hidden meanings woven into the fabric of folklore. Together, we'll uncover the magical significance of names and how they've been used to command fate, invoke blessings, or even cast curses. By the end, you might just find yourself wondering, what power does your own name hold? Let's begin this journey into the timeless allure of names and the mysteries they carry. In the ancient world, names were more than just words, they were keys to power. Long before modern storytelling, early civilizations like the Egyptians and Mesopotamians believed that to name something was to claim authority over it. This idea wasn't just a poetic metaphor, it was a deeply rooted spiritual and magical principle. For these cultures, names carried the essence of a being or object, and knowing the true name of a god, spirit, or even a stone meant you could command its will. Take the Egyptian myth of Isis and Ra, for example. Isis, a goddess of magic, sought to gain power over the sun god Ra. She did this not through brute force, but by discovering his hidden, true name, a secret so powerful that it allowed her to bend even the mightiest of gods to her will. This concept of naming as control wasn't unique to Egypt. Across Mesopotamia, people believed that spirits and demons could be summoned or banished simply by uttering their true names. In these early myths, names were tools, weapons, and shields woven into the fabric of reality itself. To speak a name was to tap into its very soul, and this belief shaped not only how people interacted with the divine, but also how they understood their place in the world. Over time, this ancient reverence for names evolved into a cornerstone of mythological storytelling. From the epic poems of Greece to the sacred texts of India, the power of a name became a recurring theme, a way to explore humanity's desire to control the uncontrollable. Whether it was invoking a deity's favor or breaking a curse, names became the ultimate symbols of authority and transformation. And as these stories spread, so did the idea that words themselves could shape fate. But why did this belief endure? Perhaps it's because names are deeply personal, tied to identity and existence. To know a name is to know something intimate, something real. And in a world where the line between the natural and the supernatural was often blurred, names became a bridge, a way for humans to connect with forces far beyond their understanding. This ancient belief, born in the temples and tablets of early civilizations, would go on to influence countless myths, shaping the way we think about language, power, and magic even today. In the realm of mythology, names were not just identifiers, they were the very essence of a being's power and identity. This idea of the true name is a thread that weaves through countless stories, binding gods, mortals, and creatures alike to their fates. A true name wasn't something to be spoken lightly. It was a sacred secret, a key to unlocking the deepest layers of a being's existence. To know someone's true name was to hold power over them, a concept that added layers of mystery and danger to mythological tales. Take Odin, the Norse god of wisdom and war. Known by many titles, All-Father, Wanderer, Lord of the Gallows, his true name was a closely guarded secret. Why? Because Odin understood that knowledge of his true name would grant others access to his immense wisdom and power. By concealing it, he maintained control over his destiny, a reminder that even gods had vulnerabilities tied to the words that define them. Then there's the haunting story of Echo, the Greek nymph whose name became her curse. Once a vibrant and talkative spirit, Echo was punished by Hera for her chatter, losing her ability to speak freely. Her name, which means sound or voice, became a cruel irony as she was doomed to only repeat the words of others. In her case, her name wasn't just a label, it was a prison, a reflection of her fractured identity and the powerlessness that came with it. These myths reveal a recurring theme. The act of revealing a true name could lead to vulnerability, transformation, or even destruction. For gods and mortals alike, names were shields and swords, tools that could either protect or expose their innermost selves. This secrecy around names created a sense of intrigue in mythology, as characters often had to navigate the perilous balance between revealing and concealing their identities. But why did this concept resonate so deeply across cultures? Perhaps it's because names are intrinsically tied to who we are. They carry our histories, our hopes, and our fears. In a world where the boundary between the seen and the unseen was often blurred, names became a way to navigate the unknown. They were passports to the divine, passwords to hidden realms, and sometimes chains that bound the soul. This reverence for true names shaped not only the stories of gods and heroes, but also the way people understood their own lives. It's a reminder that words, especially names, hold immense power to define, to control, and to transform. And as we explore these myths, we begin to see how the ancient belief in the magic of names continues to echo in our own world, where the words we choose still shape the stories we tell and the lives we lead. In the world of mythology, names were more than just identifiers. They were instruments of creation and destruction, capable of shaping reality itself. One of the most iconic examples comes from the biblical story of Adam, the first man. According to the book of Genesis, God tasked Adam with naming every creature on earth. This act wasn't just a formality, it was a profound declaration of humanity's dominion over creation. By giving names to the animals, Adam wasn't merely labeling them, he was defining their essence, weaving their identities into the fabric of existence. In this context, names became tools of order, bringing structure and meaning to a chaotic world. But names weren't always forces of creation. In some myths, they carried the weight of destruction, capable of unraveling what they had once built. Take Shiva, the Hindu god of transformation. Known as the Destroyer, Shiva's name embodies a duality that's both awe-inspiring and terrifying. On one hand, his name represents renewal, the necessary destruction that paves the way for rebirth. On the other, it signifies annihilation, the power to reduce even the mightiest forces to nothingness. This dual nature reflects a broader truth about names in mythology. They could be as much about endings as they were about beginnings. This duality isn't limited to gods and divine beings. In many myths, names were used by mortals to wield power over their surroundings. Consider the ancient Babylonian incantations, where speaking the names of spirits or demons could either summon their aid or banish them forever. Names became weapons capable of bending the will of supernatural forces to a mortal's command. Yet this power came with a cost. To misuse a name, to speak it without understanding its true weight, could unleash chaos. What makes these stories so compelling is the way they reflect humanity's relationship with language itself. Names, in their simplest form, are words, but in mythology, they transcend mere speech. They become bridges between the mundane and the magical, the seen and the unseen. Whether used to create, destroy, or transform, names remind us of the power inherent in the words we choose. Through these myths, we see how names were more than just tools. They were expressions of humanity's deepest desires and fears. They were a way to assert control over a world that often felt unpredictable, to impose order where there was chaos, and to confront the unknown with a single, powerful word. And as we explore these stories, we begin to understand why names held such significance. They were, and still are, a way for us to shape the world around us, one word at a time. In the realm of rituals and incantations, the act of speaking a name wasn't just a form of communication, it was an act of summoning. Across cultures, the utterance of a name became a powerful tool to call upon divine or supernatural forces, bridging the gap between the mortal world and the realms beyond. This practice, known as invocation, reveals how deeply intertwined names were with magic and spirituality. To speak a name was to command attention, to draw power into the present moment, and to create a connection that transcended the boundaries of the physical world. Consider the ancient Babylonians who crafted intricate incantations to protect themselves from malevolent spirits. These texts weren't mere words, they were carefully constructed spells designed to invoke the names of gods and protective entities. By calling upon these names, practitioners believed they could summon divine intervention, creating a shield against evil. The name of a god, spoken with reverence and intent, became a lifeline, a way to harness power far greater than any mortal could possess. This idea of invocation wasn't limited to one culture or tradition. In ancient Greece, priests and oracles invoked the names of gods like Zeus or Apollo during sacred rituals, seeking guidance or blessings. Similarly, in Hinduism, the chanting of divine names known as Nama Japa was seen as a way to purify the mind and draw closer to the divine. These practices highlight a universal belief that names held the power to summon, to transform, and to connect. But why did the simple act of speaking a name carry such weight? At its core, invocation reflects a profound understanding of language as a tool of creation. To name something was to bring it into existence, even if only in thought or spirit. This belief extended beyond gods and spirits. It applied to curses as well. In many traditions, speaking the name of an enemy with malicious intent was thought to unleash harm, binding them to the words spoken against them. Names, in this context, became weapons capable of shaping reality in ways both beautiful and terrifying. What's fascinating is how this practice shaped the perception of names as conduits of magic. Names weren't just labels, they were living, breathing entities carrying the essence of what they represented. Whether spoken in prayer, whispered in a spell, or shouted in a curse, names became the threads that wove the mortal and divine together. This belief in the magic of invocation continues to influence how we think about language and power, reminding us that words are never just words, they are keys to worlds unseen, waiting to be unlocked by those who dare to speak them. In Greek mythology, names were more than mere identifiers. They were prophecies etched into the very fabric of a person's life, shaping their destiny in ways both profound and inescapable. Consider the story of Oedipus, whose name, meaning swollen foot, carried a grim foreshadowing. As an infant, Oedipus was abandoned with his ankles bound, leaving him with a permanent mark, a swollen foot. This name, given in sorrow and pain, became a harbinger of his tragic fate. Despite his efforts to escape the prophecy that he would kill his father and marry his mother, Oedipus could not outrun the destiny his name seemed to whisper from the moment he was born. His story is a stark reminder that in Greek mythology, names were not just labels, they were threads woven into the tapestry of fate itself. Then there's Cassandra, the Trojan princess blessed with the gift of prophecy but cursed by Apollo to never be believed. Her name, often interpreted as she who entangles men, reflects her dual role as both a seer and a tragic figure. Even as she warned of the impending fall of Troy, her words fell on deaf ears. Her name became a symbol of her isolation, a cruel twist of fate that bound her to a truth she could never share. In Cassandra's story, we see how a name could encapsulate not just a person's destiny, but also their deepest struggles and sorrows. And who could forget Achilles, the greatest warrior of the Trojan War? His name, derived from the Greek word for pain or grief, hinted at the sorrow his life would bring not just to his enemies but to those who loved him. His mother, Thetis, dipped him in the river Styx to make him invulnerable, but she held him by the heel, leaving that one spot untouched. This oversight, tied to his very name, became his fatal weakness. Achilles' story shows how a name could carry both glory and vulnerability, a paradox that defined his legend. These myths reveal a recurring theme. In Greek mythology, names were not arbitrary. They were intricately tied to a person's fate, often revealing truths about their character, their struggles, and their ultimate destiny. This idea wasn't unique to Greece, though. In Norse mythology, the name Sigurd meant victory guardian, foreshadowing his heroic deeds, while in Celtic tales, names like Cu Chulainn, Hound of Culan, reflected the roles and burdens their bearers would carry. Across cultures, names served as mirrors, reflecting the essence of a person's journey long before it unfolded. What makes this concept so compelling is its universality. Even today, names carry weight, shaping how we see ourselves and how others perceive us. In mythology, however, names went a step further. They were destiny itself, written in syllables and spoken into existence. They remind us that the words we choose, the names we bear, are more than just sounds. They are stories waiting to be told, prophecies waiting to be fulfilled. And as we explore these ancient tales, we're left to wonder, what story does your name tell? In the misty hills and ancient forests of Celtic lore, names were more than words. They were spells woven with the artistry of poetry and the force of magic. The Celts believed that a name, when crafted with care, could shape reality itself. This wasn't just a poetic notion. It was a deeply held belief that names carried the power to protect, transform, and even command the unseen forces of the world. At the heart of this tradition were the bards and druids, keepers of wisdom and wielders of words, who understood that a well-spoken name could change the course of history. Take the story of Taliesin, one of the most legendary bards in Celtic mythology. Originally named Gwion Bach, he was a humble servant who accidentally gained immense knowledge by tasting a magical brew meant for his master. To escape punishment, he transformed into various creatures, eventually being reborn as Taliesin, whose name means radiant brow. This new name wasn't just a label, it marked his transformation into a figure of unparalleled wisdom and poetic skill. Through his name, Taliesin embodied the very essence of inspiration and creativity, becoming a symbol of the power that names held to redefine identity and destiny. For the Celts, poetic naming was an art form, a way to capture the essence of a person or thing in a way that resonated with the rhythms of the natural world. A well-crafted name wasn't just descriptive, it was alive, carrying the energy and spirit of what it represented. Druids, the spiritual leaders of Celtic society, often used these names in rituals to invoke protection, blessings, or even to bind enemies. The act of naming became a sacred act, a way to align oneself with the forces of nature and the divine. This tradition of poetic naming didn't just shape individual lives, it influenced entire cultures. The Celts believed that the stories told by bards, filled with powerful names and lyrical language, were more than entertainment. They were a way to preserve history, pass down wisdom, and strengthen the bonds of community. Through these tales, names became anchors of identity, connecting people to their ancestors, their land, and their gods. Even today, the echoes of this ancient belief linger in the way we think about names and their power. The Celts taught us that a name isn't just a sound or a label, it's a story, a spell, a reflection of who we are and who we might become. Whether whispered in a sacred grove or sung in a bard's hall, names in Celtic lore remind us that words have the power to shape not just our stories, but the very world around us. And as we explore these myths, we're invited to consider, what story does your name tell and what magic might it hold? In the icy realms of Norse mythology, words weren't just spoken, they were carved into the very bones of the earth. The runes, ancient symbols that served as both an alphabet and a source of immense power, were more than mere letters. They were conduits of magic, tools that could shape reality, protect the vulnerable, and even curse the unworthy. At the heart of this belief was Odin, the All-Father, who sacrificed much to unlock the secrets of the runes. According to legend, Odin hung himself from the branches of Yggdrasil, the world tree, for 9 days and nights, pierced by his own spear. In his agony, he gained the wisdom of the runes, symbols that held the power to alter fate itself. This act of self-sacrifice underscores the profound reverence the Norse had for the written word, a reverence that extended to the names inscribed within those runes. Runes weren't just for writing, they were spells in physical form. Warriors would carve runes into their weapons, calling upon the gods to grant them strength and victory. Healers would inscribe them onto stones or wood, using the symbols to channel divine energy for curing ailments. Even the names of loved ones or enemies could be etched into runes, transforming them into instruments of protection or harm. In the Norse worldview, to write a name in runes was to bind it to the will of the carver, creating a tangible link between the mortal and the divine. This interplay between spoken names and written runes reveals a fascinating duality in Norse magic. A name spoken aloud could summon a god or spirit, but that same name, carved into stone or wood, could anchor its power in the physical world. This connection between language and magic wasn't just practical, it was deeply symbolic. The Norse saw words, whether spoken or written, as living forces, capable of bridging the gap between the seen and the unseen. Take, for example, the story of Sigurd, the dragon slayer. After slaying the fearsome Fafnir, Sigurd discovered a treasure hoard protected by runic inscriptions. These runes weren't mere decorations, they were spells designed to guard the treasure and curse any who tried to claim it. By deciphering the runes, Sigurd was able to navigate the dangers they posed, a testament to the power of understanding both the spoken and written word. What makes the Norse relationship with runes so compelling is how it reflects their broader worldview. In a land of harsh winters and unpredictable seas, the Norse relied on the power of words to bring order to chaos. Runes became a way to assert control over an often hostile world, to call upon the gods for aid, and to leave a mark that would endure long after the carver was gone. This belief in the magic of language shaped not only their myths but also their daily lives, weaving the sacred and the mundane into a single, unified tapestry. Through these stories, we see how the Norse understood the profound connection between words and power. Names, spoken or written, were never just words. They were keys to unlocking the mysteries of the universe, tools for shaping destiny, and echoes of the divine. And as we explore these ancient beliefs, we're reminded that even today, the words we choose carry a weight far beyond their surface meaning, shaping the stories we tell and the lives we lead. In the golden sands of ancient Egypt, names were more than mere words, they were secrets, guarded with the same reverence as the treasures buried within the pyramids. The Egyptians believed that a name was not just a label but a vital part of a person's or God's essence. To know someone's true name was to hold a piece of their soul, and with it, the power to command their will. This belief was especially true when it came to the gods themselves. Among the most famous examples is the myth of Isis and Ra, where the cunning goddess sought to uncover Ra's hidden name, the key to his immense power. Isis, a master of magic and strategy, understood that Ra's true name was the source of his strength. To obtain it, she devised a clever ruse. When Ra grew older and more vulnerable, Isis created a serpent from his saliva and set it to bite him. As Ra writhed in pain, only Isis could cure him, but only if he revealed his true name. Reluctantly, Ra whispered the secret to her, and in that moment, Isis gained power over even the sun god himself. This story illustrates the profound belief that a name, especially a divine one, was not just a word but a force to be wielded with care. This reverence for secret names wasn't limited to the gods. Egyptian pharaohs, considered living deities, also bore multiple names and titles, each carrying its own weight and significance. Their throne names, birth names, and epithets were more than ceremonial. They were tools to assert their divine authority and connect them to the gods they represented. To know a pharaoh's true name was to have access to their divine essence, a privilege reserved for the most sacred rituals and trusted advisors. The practice of hiding true names extended beyond individuals to the very fabric of Egyptian society. In rituals, priests would often invoke the names of gods in specific, guarded ways, ensuring that their power remained intact and their mysteries preserved. Even in everyday life, people were cautious about how they used names, believing that speaking them carelessly could weaken their protective power or attract unwanted attention from the divine. This culture of secrecy around names shaped Egyptian mythology in profound ways. It emphasized the idea that knowledge was power, but also that power came with responsibility. The gods' names were not just words to be spoken, they were sacred keys unlocking the mysteries of the universe. And as we explore these ancient beliefs, we begin to see how the Egyptians' reverence for names reflects a deeper truth. That language, in its purest form, is a bridge between the mortal and the divine, a way to touch the infinite with a single, carefully chosen word. In the world of mythology, names weren't just identifiers. They were vessels of profound consequence, capable of carrying curses as easily as they could bestow blessings. This duality reveals how deeply intertwined names were with the forces of fate, divinity, and human emotion. In some stories, a name could be a weapon wielded to inflict suffering or exact revenge. In others, it could be a gift, a mark of divine favor that transformed lives. This interplay between curse and blessing shows how names were far more than words. They were instruments of power, shaping destinies with every syllable. Take the haunting Irish legend of the children of Lir. When their stepmother, Aoife, grew jealous of her husband's love for his children, she didn't resort to physical harm. Instead, she turned to the power of words, cursing them to live as swans for 900 years. Her curse, spoken with malice and intent, bound them to a fate of sorrow and separation. Yet even in their suffering, their names Fionnuala, Aod, Fiachra, and Con remained a reminder of their humanity, a thread of hope that tied them to the world they had lost. This story illustrates how a name could become both a prison and a lifeline, holding the weight of both curse and identity. On the other hand, names could also be sources of divine blessing, marking a person for greatness or transformation. Consider the biblical story of Jacob, who wrestled with an angel and emerged with a new name, Israel. This name, meaning "he who struggles with God," wasn't just a title, it was a blessing that signified his new role as the father of a nation. Through this act of renaming, Jacob's identity was reshaped, his destiny rewritten by the divine. His story shows how a name could be a conduit for grace, a symbol of renewal and purpose. This duality of names as curses and blessings wasn't limited to a single culture or tradition. Across the world, myths reflect the belief that names could carry the weight of divine favor or wrath. In Norse mythology, the name Loki became synonymous with chaos and trickery, a curse that defined his role among the gods. In contrast, the name Baldur, meaning lord or prince, was a mark of purity and light, a blessing that made him beloved by all. These examples reveal how names were seen as reflections of character and destiny, shaping not only individual lives but also the stories that defined entire cultures. What's striking is how this belief shaped cultural attitudes toward naming. In many societies, choosing a name was a sacred act, a way to invoke protection, strength, or prosperity. Names were often given with care, chosen to reflect the hopes and dreams of those who bestowed them. Yet there was also a cautionary side, a recognition that names could be used to harm as easily as to heal. This balance between blessing and curse made naming a powerful ritual, one that carried both joy and responsibility. Through these myths, we see how names became more than just words. They were expressions of the human experience, capturing the full spectrum of emotion and meaning. Whether spoken in anger or whispered in prayer, names remind us that language is never neutral. It is a force that can build or destroy, heal or harm, curse or bless. And as we explore these ancient stories, we're invited to reflect on the power of the names we carry and the stories they tell about who we are. In the grand tapestry of heroic myths, names often served as milestones, marking the moments when ordinary individuals transformed into legends. A hero's journey wasn't just about slaying monsters or claiming treasures. It was also about the evolution of their identity, often captured in the very names they bore. Take Perseus, for example, whose name means destroyer. From the moment he was born, his name hinted at his destiny as the slayer of Medusa. But it wasn't just his divine lineage that defined him. It was the way his name became a testament to his courage and resourcefulness. Through his trials, Perseus didn't just live up to his name. He embodied it, turning a simple label into a symbol of heroism. Then there's Beowulf, whose name literally means bear, a creature known for its strength and ferocity. From his first battle against the monster Grendel to his final showdown with a dragon, Beowulf's name became synonymous with bravery and self-sacrifice. It wasn't just a title, it was a mantle he carried, one that grew heavier with each challenge he faced. By the end of his story, his name wasn't just a word, it was a legacy, echoing through the halls of myth as a reminder of what it means to be a true hero. These stories reveal a fascinating pattern. In mythology, a name change often signaled a turning point. Heroes didn't just earn their names, they grew into them, transforming through their struggles and triumphs. This idea wasn't limited to individual figures, it was also deeply tied to cultural identity. In many traditions, naming rituals were a way to mark significant moments in a person's life, from birth to adulthood to death. A new name could signify a new role, a new responsibility, or a new chapter in the story of a community. Consider the Native American tradition of earning a name through acts of bravery or wisdom. These names weren't given lightly, they were earned, reflecting the values and aspirations of the tribe. Similarly, in African folklore, names often carried the weight of ancestors, linking individuals to their heritage and the collective memory of their people. Through these rituals, names became more than personal identifiers. They were threads that connected individuals to their cultures, their histories, and their futures. What makes these naming traditions so compelling is their universality. Across time and space, names have been used to mark transformation, to honor achievement, and to celebrate identity. They remind us that a name isn't just a sound or a label, it's a story, a reflection of who we are and who we might become. As we explore the myths of heroes like Perseus and Beowulf, we're invited to consider the role of names in our own lives. What do our names say about us, and what stories are we writing with the words we carry? In the myths of ancient Rome, names weren't just labels, they were markers of transformation, often signaling profound shifts in identity or even physical form. One of the most poignant examples is the story of Daphne, a nymph pursued by the god Apollo. Desperate to escape his advances, Daphne called upon her father, the river god Peneus, for help. In a moment of divine intervention, she was transformed into a laurel tree. Her name, which means laurel, became a permanent testament to her metamorphosis. This tale isn't just about escape, it's about how a name can encapsulate an entire story of change, loss, and survival. In becoming the laurel, Daphne's name became a symbol of her new identity, a living reminder of her transformation. This idea of names as markers of change isn't unique to Roman mythology. Across cultures, names often served as turning points in a character's journey, reflecting shifts in status, identity, or even species. In Greek mythology, the nymph Syrinx transformed into reeds to escape the god Pan. Her name, which means pipe, became tied to the musical instrument Pan later crafted from those reeds. Through her transformation, her name shifted from representing a person to symbolizing an object, a testament to how deeply intertwined names can be with identity and purpose. In some myths, a name change wasn't just about physical transformation, it was about rebirth. Take the Egyptian god Atum, who was said to have created himself out of chaos. His name, meaning complete or finished, reflected his role as the self-made creator of the universe. Later, as Ra-Atum, he merged with the sun god Ra, symbolizing a divine evolution. This blending of identities through names highlights how names could signify not just change, but also the merging of power, purpose, and destiny. The theme of name as transformation extends beyond gods and nymphs. In the Arthurian legends, the knight Lancelot undergoes a symbolic rebirth when he takes on the name Le Chevalier Mal Fait, or the Knight of the Cart. This new name, born out of shame and redemption, marked a pivotal moment in his journey, reflecting his internal struggle and growth. Here, the name becomes a mirror, reflecting not just who he is, but who he is becoming. What makes these stories so compelling is their universality. Whether it's Daphne becoming a laurel, Syrinx transforming into reeds, or Lancelot embracing a new identity, these myths remind us that names are more than just words. They are living, breathing symbols of transformation. They capture the essence of change, whether it's an escape, a rebirth, or a merging of identities. And as we explore these tales, we begin to see how deeply names are woven into the fabric of mythology, not just as identifiers, but as markers of the profound and often painful process of becoming. They remind us that transformation is rarely simple, but it's always meaningful. And in that meaning, we find a reflection of our own journeys, our own names, and the stories they tell. In many cultures, the act of naming or not naming carried a weight far beyond mere words. Certain names were considered so powerful, so sacred, or so dangerous that uttering them aloud was strictly forbidden. This taboo wasn't just about respect, it was a recognition of the immense power that names held, a power that could summon divine forces or unleash chaos. Among the most poignant examples is the Jewish tradition of not speaking the name of God. Known as the Tetragrammaton, the four-letter name of God, who was considered too sacred to be spoken aloud. Instead, it was replaced with titles like Adonai or Hashem, meaning the name. This practice wasn't just about reverence, it reflected a deep understanding that to speak the name of the divine was to touch the divine itself, an act that demanded the utmost care and humility. This concept of name taboos wasn't limited to the divine. In Greek mythology, the Furies, vengeful spirits who pursued wrongdoers, were rarely called by their true names. Instead, they were referred to euphemistically as the Eumenides, meaning the kindly ones. This wasn't out of affection, it was a way to avoid invoking their wrath. To speak their true names was to risk summoning their terrifying presence, a reminder that names could be both a shield and a weapon. The Greeks understood that some names were too dangerous to utter, their power too great to be contained by mere words. These taboos shaped not only religious practices but also the way myths were told and understood. In many stories, the act of naming or not naming became a central theme, reflecting the delicate balance between power and peril. For example, in Egyptian mythology, the goddess Isis's quest to uncover Ra's true name was fraught with danger, a reminder that even the gods were vulnerable when their names were revealed. Similarly, in Norse lore, the names of certain runes were spoken only in whispers, their power too great to be invoked lightly. What's striking about these taboos is how they reveal a universal truth. Names were never just words. They were forces capable of shaping reality, commanding respect, or invoking fear. This belief shaped not only the myths of the past, but also the rituals and traditions that followed. Even today, the echoes of these taboos linger in the way we approach language and the names we choose to speak or not to speak. Through these stories, we see how the power of names extends far beyond their surface meaning. They are not just tools for communication, they are keys to the sacred, the dangerous, and the unknown. And as we explore these ancient beliefs, we're reminded that the words we choose and the names we invoke carry a weight that transcends time and culture, shaping the stories we tell and the worlds we create. In the beginning, when the world was formless and shrouded in darkness, it was the power of names that brought light, order, and life. This idea lies at the heart of creation myths across cultures, where naming wasn't just an act of identification, it was the very act of creation itself. Take the Maori myth of Taine, the god of forests and birds, who played a pivotal role in shaping the world. According to legend, Taine's parents, Ranginui, the Sky Father, and Papatuanuku, the Earth Mother, were locked in a tight embrace, leaving no space for light or life to flourish. To create the world as we know it, Taine had to separate them. But this wasn't a simple act of physical strength, it was an act of naming. By speaking the names of earth and sky, Taine gave them distinct identities, breaking their unity and allowing life to emerge in the space between. In this story, naming wasn't just a step in the process, it was the process, the spell that brought order to chaos. This belief in the creative power of names wasn't unique to the Maori. In the Babylonian creation epic, the Enuma Elish, the god Marduk defeats the primordial goddess Tiamat and uses her body to form the heavens and the earth. But before he could do so, he had to name the winds, the rivers, and the stars, assigning each element its place in the cosmos. For the Babylonians, naming wasn't just about labeling, it was about asserting control over the raw, untamed forces of the universe. By giving names to the elements, Marduk transformed chaos into a structured, livable world. Even in the Judeo-Christian tradition, the act of naming is central to creation. In the book of Genesis, God speaks the world into existence, calling forth light, land, and sea with the power of his words. Later, he tasks Adam with naming the animals, a symbolic act that grants humanity a role in the divine order of creation. This idea that names are the first spells, the tools through which the world is shaped, reveals a universal truth. Language and the names it carries is a force of creation. What's fascinating about these myths is how they reflect a shared understanding of the world. Whether it's Taine separating earth and sky, Marduk naming the winds, or God speaking light into being, these stories all point to the same profound idea. Names are the building blocks of reality. They are the means by which the formless becomes formed, the chaotic becomes ordered, and the unknown becomes known. This belief in the creative power of names didn't just shape ancient myths, it influenced entire worldviews. For many cultures, naming was a sacred act, a way to connect with the divine and assert humanity's place in the cosmos. It was a reminder that words, especially names, are never just words. They are spells, tools, and bridges linking the mortal to the divine, the known to the unknown, and the past to the future. And as we explore these creation myths, we begin to see how the power of names continues to shape the stories we tell and the worlds we create. Folklore has long been a keeper of humanity's deepest beliefs, and no belief is more enduring than the idea that names hold power. Across Europe, tales of spirits, fairies, and otherworldly beings reveal a shared understanding. To know a name was to command its bearer. This wasn't just superstition, it was a way of navigating a world filled with unseen forces. Take the Slavic domovoi, for example, a household spirit believed to protect the home. These beings were neither wholly good nor evil. Their behavior depended on how they were treated. But one thing was certain: to call a domovoi by its true name was to summon its presence, and to banish it, one needed only to speak its name with authority. This practice wasn't unique to the Slavs. Across Europe, from the brownies of Scotland to the kobolds of Germany, naming was a tool to manage the unpredictable. These stories weren't just about controlling spirits, they were about survival. In a world where the line between the natural and supernatural was thin, knowing how to name and summon these beings could mean the difference between prosperity and ruin. For example, in Irish folklore, the banshee, a wailing spirit foretelling death, could be appeased or avoided if one knew how to address her properly. Her name, when spoken with care, could turn her from a harbinger of doom into a guardian of the family. These tales reveal a universal truth. Names were more than identifiers, they were keys to navigating the unseen world. But how did these ancient beliefs survive into the modern era? Folklore didn't just preserve the magical significance of names, it embedded them into the cultural imagination. Stories of named spirits and enchanted beings passed down through generations, shaping how people thought about language and power. Even as science and reason took hold, the idea that names could influence reality lingered, finding its way into literature, art, and even everyday superstitions. Think of the phrase, "speak of the devil," a remnant of the belief that naming something could summon it. Or consider the modern fascination with naming rituals, from choosing baby names to invoking stage names that embody a new identity. These practices are echoes of an ancient understanding. Names are not just words, they are spells. What's fascinating is how these folklore traditions continue to influence us today. The idea that names hold power isn't just a relic of the past, it's a thread that weaves through our modern lives. From the way we name our children to the way we craft our online personas, the belief in the magic of names endures. And as we explore these ancient tales, we begin to see how deeply they've shaped our understanding of identity, destiny, and the power of words. Through folklore, we're reminded that names are more than labels. They are stories, spells, and bridges to worlds both seen and unseen. They connect us to our ancestors, our cultures, and the mysteries that lie just beyond the edges of our understanding. And as we carry these stories forward, we continue to write new chapters in the timeless tale of the power of names. In the rich tapestry of Hindu mythology, the name Krishna carries a weight far beyond its literal meaning of Dark One or all-attractive. It's a name that embodies his divine role as a protector, a guide, and a source of infinite wisdom. Krishna's name isn't just a label, it's a declaration of his essence, a reflection of his purpose in the cosmic order. From his playful childhood as a mischievous cowherd to his pivotal role in the Bhagavad Gita, where he reveals profound truths to the warrior Arjuna, Krishna's name is inseparable from his identity. It's a reminder that in mythology, names are never arbitrary, they are mirrors reflecting the very soul of the being they define. This idea that names encapsulate identity and destiny isn't unique to Krishna. Across myths, names often served as windows into a character's true nature. Take the Greek hero Achilles, whose name means pain or grief. From the moment he was born, his name foreshadowed the sorrow he would bring, not just to his enemies but to those who loved him. His story is a testament to how names can carry the weight of fate, shaping not only the lives of individuals but also the stories they inhabit. in Norse mythology, the god Loki's name is synonymous with chaos and trickery. It's a name that captures his unpredictable nature, his ability to disrupt the order of the gods and challenge their authority. Yet, Loki's name also hints at a deeper complexity, a being who, despite his mischief, plays a crucial role in the unfolding of the cosmos. His name isn't just a description, it's a prophecy, a thread woven into the fabric of his destiny. What's striking about these examples is how names serve as anchors, grounding mythological characters in their roles and purposes. They aren't just identifiers, they are declarations of existence, statements of who these beings are and what they are meant to do. This belief shaped the way myths were told and understood, giving names a power that transcended their surface meaning. This concept of names as declarations of identity extends beyond gods and heroes. In many traditions, names were given with intention, chosen to reflect the hopes, fears, and values of the community. For example, in Native American cultures, names often carried spiritual significance, linking individuals to their ancestors and the natural world. A name wasn't just a word, it was a connection, a way to affirm one's place in the grand scheme of things. Through these stories, we see how names became more than just words. They were expressions of identity, purpose, and destiny. They remind us that the names we carry are not just labels, but stories waiting to be told. And as we explore these ancient myths, we're invited to reflect on the power of our own names and the roles they play in shaping who we are. Over time, the way we think about names and the power we ascribe to them has shifted dramatically, reflecting the changing tides of culture, belief, and identity. In ancient myth, names were often sacred, secret, and deeply tied to the divine. They weren't just labels, they were keys to power, tools to summon gods or spirits, and shields to protect against unseen forces. But as societies evolved, so did the role of names. What once was a sacred act of naming became a more personal, even public, expression of individuality. Today, names are still powerful, but their magic has taken on new forms, shaping not only how we see ourselves, but also how we tell our stories. In ancient times, names were rarely casual. They were chosen with care, often reflecting a person's role, destiny, or connection to the divine. In many cultures, a child's name might be revealed only after a ritual or ceremony, a practice that underscored the belief that names carried weight. For example, in some Native American traditions, names were earned through acts of bravery or wisdom, marking a person's growth and place within the community. Similarly, in ancient Rome, names were tied to family lineage and social status, with each name carrying the legacy of ancestors and the expectations of the future. But as societies became more complex, the way we used names began to change. The rise of written language and record-keeping meant that names became more standardized, less tied to ritual and more to practicality. In medieval Europe, for instance, surnames began to emerge, often based on occupations, locations, or family ties. This shift marked a turning point. Names were no longer just about individual identity, but also about social structure and belonging. Yet, even as names became more public, they retained a sense of personal significance, a reminder of where someone came from and who they aspired to be. By the time we reach the modern era, names have taken on an even more personal dimension. Today, parents often choose names based on personal preferences, cultural heritage, or even trends in pop culture. The rise of social media has also given names a new kind of power, allowing people to craft identities that extend far beyond their given names. Online handles, stage names, and pseudonyms have become modern-day tools for self-expression, reflecting the same desire to shape identity that ancient myths once captured. This evolution of naming practices hasn't just changed how we see ourselves, it's also influenced how we tell stories. In contemporary literature and film, names are often used to reveal character traits, foreshadow events, or symbolize deeper themes. Think of Harry Potter, whose name carries the weight of his destiny, or Katniss Everdeen, whose name evokes both strength and survival. These modern stories echo the ancient belief that names are more than words. They are mirrors reflecting who we are and who we might become. What's fascinating is how this evolution reflects a broader shift in how we understand power and identity. In ancient myths, power often came from knowing or controlling a name. Today, power comes from choosing or crafting one. Whether it's a parent naming a child, an artist adopting a stage name, or a writer weaving meaning into a character's name, the act of naming remains a deeply human act, a way to assert our place in the world and shape the stories we tell. As we look back at the journey of naming practices, we're reminded that names are never just names. They are bridges between the past and the present, the individual and the collective, the ordinary and the extraordinary. And in that, they continue to hold a timeless kind of magic, one that connects us to the myths of old and the stories yet to be told. The power of names didn't fade with the ancient myths, it evolved, finding new life in the stories we tell today. From the pages of fantasy novels to the screens of blockbuster films, modern mythology continues to draw on the timeless belief that names hold immense power. Take Earthsea, the beloved fantasy series by Ursula K. Le Guin. In her world, magic revolves around knowing the true names of things. A wizard's strength lies in their ability to uncover these hidden names, giving them the power to command the elements, heal the sick, or even reshape reality itself. This idea that a name is the key to a thing's essence isn't just a clever plot device. It's a direct echo of ancient beliefs where names were seen as sacred secrets, tools to unlock the mysteries of the universe. But it's not just in literature where this idea thrives. Pop culture is filled with examples of names as symbols of power. Think of superheroes like Spider-Man or Black Widow. Their aliases aren't just catchy nicknames, they're declarations of identity, markers of their abilities and roles in the world. Even in magical stories like Harry Potter, spells and incantations rely on the power of words, with names like Expecto Patronum or Avada Kedavra carrying weight far beyond their literal meanings. These modern tales reflect a deep-rooted understanding. Names are more than labels, they're spells, keys, and declarations of who we are. This connection between ancient traditions and modern storytelling isn't accidental. It's a testament to the enduring appeal of names as symbols of power and transformation. In ancient myths, names were often tied to destiny, identity, and the divine. Today, they serve a similar purpose, whether it's a hero choosing a name that reflects their mission or a villain hiding their true identity to protect their power. The idea that knowing someone's name gives you power over them, or that changing your name can change your fate hasn't gone away. It's simply taken on new forms. What's fascinating is how these modern interpretations invite us to reflect on our own relationship with names. In a world where we craft online personas, choose stage names, or even rename ourselves to reflect our true identities, the ancient belief in the power of names feels more relevant than ever. Names are still tools of transformation, ways to assert who we are and who we want to become. They're bridges between the past and the present, the ordinary and the extraordinary. As we explore these modern myths, we're reminded that the stories we tell about names are, at their core, stories about ourselves. Whether it's a wizard in a fantasy world, a superhero in a comic book, or a character in a movie, the power of names continues to captivate us not just because it's magical, but because it's deeply human. And in that, we find a connection to the ancient myths that first taught us. Names are never just words. They're the threads that weave our identities, our destinies, and our stories together. Names don't just exist in the realm of mythology, they live within us, shaping how we see ourselves and how others see us. This psychological power of names is something that modern science has begun to explore, and the findings are fascinating. Just as ancient myths taught that names could command gods or alter destinies, today's research suggests that names influence our behavior, self-perception, and even the way others treat us. It's a connection between the ancient and the modern, revealing that the magic of names isn't confined to stories, it's woven into the fabric of our lives. Consider the name-letter effect, a psychological phenomenon where people show a preference for letters in their own names. This might seem trivial, but it reflects something deeper, the way our names become part of our identity, subtly shaping our choices and preferences. Studies have also shown that names can influence career paths, with certain names being more common in specific professions. A person named Grace might feel drawn to fields that emphasize elegance or diplomacy, while a hunter might gravitate toward roles that require precision or focus. These trends aren't just coincidences, they're evidence of how deeply names can influence us, much like the way mythological names carried the weight of destiny. But the power of names doesn't stop at self-perception. Research has shown that names can also shape how others see us. For example, names that are perceived as more traditional or elite often lead to assumptions about a person's background or capabilities. This mirrors the way mythological names carried authority or divine favor, influencing how characters were perceived by others. In myths, a name like Athena instantly conveyed wisdom and strength, while today, names can evoke similar associations, whether consciously or unconsciously. This connection between names and perception isn't just about social dynamics, it's also about the stories we tell ourselves. Just as mythological figures were defined by their names, modern individuals often use their names as a lens through which they understand their place in the world. A name can become a source of pride, a reminder of heritage, or even a call to live up to its meaning. For example, someone named Victoria might feel inspired to embody victory in their pursuits, much like the Roman goddess of triumph. What's remarkable is how this understanding deepens our appreciation of mythological themes. The ancients believed that names held power because they saw how names shaped lives and destinies. Today, we see the same principles at work, not through magic, but through psychology and culture. Names are still spells, still keys to identity, still tools for transformation. They remind us that the stories we tell about ourselves and the names we carry are more than just words. They're the threads that connect us to the past, the present, and the infinite possibilities of the future. As we reflect on the psychological power of names, we're reminded that the magic of mythology isn't just a relic of the past. It's a living force shaping who we are and who we might become. And in that, we find a deeper connection to the timeless allure of names, both in myth and in our own lives. In the myths of countless cultures, names were more than words. They were bridges connecting the mortal world to the realms of the divine. This idea wasn't just poetic, it was practical. Names became tools for invoking protection, seeking guidance, and calling upon higher powers. Think of the ancient Egyptians, who believed that uttering the names of gods during rituals could bring blessings or ward off evil. The act of speaking a divine name wasn't just a prayer, it was a conversation with the sacred, a way to draw the attention of the gods and invite their presence into the human world. In many traditions, names were seen as direct lines to the divine. Take the Hindu practice of Nama Japa, the repetition of a god's name as a form of meditation. By chanting names like Rama or Krishna, devotees weren't just honoring the gods, they were invoking their essence, calling their divine qualities into the present moment. This practice reflects a universal belief that names carry the power to summon, to connect, and to transform. Whether whispered in a temple or shouted in a storm, names became a way to bridge the gap between the seen and the unseen. But names weren't just about summoning help, they were also about protection. In Babylonian myths, the names of gods and spirits were often inscribed on amulets or written in incantations to shield the bearer from harm. These names weren't just symbols, they were believed to carry the actual presence of the divine, creating a barrier against malevolent forces. Similarly, in Norse mythology, runes carved with the names of gods like Thor or Odin were thought to imbue weapons or tools with divine strength. In these traditions, names weren't just words, they were shields, armor forged from the power of the sacred. This idea of names as bridges extended beyond the divine. In many myths, names were also used to communicate with ancestors, spirits, and even the natural world. For example, in Native American traditions, names were often given to reflect a person's connection to the land, the animals, or the spirits that guided their tribe. These names weren't just personal identifiers, they were acknowledgments of a deeper relationship, a way to honor the interconnectedness of all things. By speaking these names, people could tap into the wisdom of their ancestors, the strength of the earth, and the mysteries of the unseen. What makes this concept so enduring is its universality. Across time and space, names have served as a way to navigate the unknown, to connect with forces greater than ourselves, and to assert our place in the cosmos. They remind us that language is more than a tool for communication. It's a bridge, a spell, a key to unlocking the mysteries of existence. As we reflect on the power of names, we're reminded of their timeless significance. Whether in ancient myths or modern practices, names continue to hold a unique kind of magic, one that connects us to the past, the present, and the infinite possibilities of the future. They are more than labels, they are stories, spells, and bridges to worlds both seen and unseen. And in that, they remind us of the profound ways in which the words we choose shape the stories we tell and the lives we lead. From the dawn of creation myths to the modern stories we tell today, names have always been more than just words. They are keys to power, tools of transformation, and bridges between worlds. Across cultures and centuries, names have shaped destinies, summoned divine forces, and even unlocked the mysteries of existence. In mythology, they are not mere labels but living, breathing entities, carrying the essence of who we are and who we might become. From the sacred secrecy of Ra's name in Egyptian lore to the poetic artistry of Celtic bards, names have been woven into the very fabric of our stories, reminding us that language is never just a means of communication, it is a force of creation. These ancient beliefs reveal something profound about humanity's relationship with identity and power. Names were not just assigned, they were earned, revealed, and sometimes even hidden, reflecting the delicate balance between vulnerability and strength. Whether it was a hero stepping into a new identity or a god guarding their true name, the act of naming was always an act of meaning, a way to assert control over an unpredictable world. And while the myths may be ancient, the power of names continues to resonate in our lives today. In a world where we craft online personas, choose stage names, or even rename ourselves to reflect our true identities, the ancient magic of names feels more relevant than ever. They are still tools of transformation, ways to declare who we are and who we aspire to be. Names connect us to our past, anchor us in the present, and guide us toward the future. They remind us that the stories we tell about ourselves and the names we carry are more than just words. They are the threads that weave our identities, our destinies, and our stories together. As we reflect on the power of names, let's turn the lens inward. What power does your name hold? What stories does it tell about your heritage, your journey, or your dreams? Names are more than just sounds, they are spells, keys, and mirrors, reflecting the essence of who we are. So, take a moment to explore the stories behind your name. and perhaps you'll uncover a deeper connection to the myths that have shaped us all. If this journey into the magic of names has sparked your curiosity, don't stop here. Dive deeper into the mysteries of mythology by subscribing to our channel. Together, we'll continue to explore the timeless stories that define us, one name, one myth, one revelation at a time. Until next time, keep asking the big questions and remember, the power of a name is only the beginning.